I got involved in the community soon after we were married in 1964. I came from a background of seeing people do volunteer work in my hometown and thought that it was something I was supposed to do. Raised in Toronto, went to Provincial Normal College and graduated in 1960, so we're having a big celebration in August for the 50th anniversary for our particular class. When I came to this more rural community, I saw that as an avenue to get involved in community and give back after all the adults who had given leadership to me. Well, by the 64, when I was married, I had been teaching in Fairview outside Halifax, and wasn't particularly keen on coming to such a rural situation, but the belief in the Strait area, the pulp mill had started operation in 1962, and of course the other industries were still in the construction stage, the heavy water plant, the oil refinery, Nova Scotia Power. So it was a booming community, and the belief was then that it was going to grow big. Those things didn't necessarily happen, but it was the mixture of people from outside coming to new people coming because of the industries. Before that, starting in 1959, the construction workers, the businesses who came in to build. So there was a lot of new people, and the new people in the community, the oil refinery people, all of the service clubs and so on in the Strait area, new people coming in from different parts of the world and Canada and the United States made quite an impact on the Strait area, really. Can you believe that you're talking to someone who helped birth a community museum and archives? And the way that it happened was this. Leo Cox, the ag rep, called from Babu and said, "Would you like to get involved in rural beautification?" Sure, why not? At the time, once we got her all cleared off, put the sign saying Kiad Mill Felcha and the flowers, that was going to be brownie points with the rural beautification people. And I thought, wouldn't it be sort of neat if on this big piece of land that we could see the Canso Causeway from here, to have a couple of freestanding billboards on which we would have the history of the community. And by the way, next year in 1980, it's going to be the 25th anniversary of the Causeway. Well, guess you'll have to form an historic society. This was in October 1978 that happened. So it had to be the summer of 78. Because you're figuring, like, how can you put anything on the signs if you don't know what the history is? So that's when the Port Hastings Historical Society was birthed in October of 1978. But all I intended was to have two freestanding billboards on land, on a piece of vacant property, and to have a reenactment, which we did. One thing led to another. All of a sudden, the men became aware that there was an older house that had been vacant for years, and all of a sudden we had a museum. Who was planning on having a museum? But that's how it happened. By 1982, with more grants, this derelict old story-and-a-half bungalow, some of us working 35-hour volunteer weeks sort of thing along with paid staff, but getting the museum actually ready. When we started, I figured there were a lot of spinning wheels and chamber pails and having rooms set up, and so I thought it might be interesting to interpret history using photographs. And of course with the display, which was one of the main emphasis of ours always, was the construction of the causeway, and we had access to the original, like all kinds of pictures taken during construction by professional photographers. But then I went further. We started looking through people's photo albums, and building up storylines on the railroad, the ferry, and when you can see the black and white picture, and so often would be showing people doing something, whether it was railroading or farming or whatever, and interpreting history. So our museum was very much the artifact part items were more accent pieces. They were the ones that you were more aware of than even Nova Scotia museums, because back in the 80s they were the ones doing all the training, so that you went. I have pictures showing actually Sadie McDougall and Rilla and I down at the Nicholas Denny's, one of the first workshops that we would have attended. And I mean, they brought, everybody was attending them back then, really. All over the place. I mean, you traveled around for a number of years to workshops and to their annual meetings. I mean, Elizabeth Ross, of course, Jim St. Clair. You got together with the ones from Sydney and so on. It was also a networking. You know, I mean, it was a way that. You figured there were other people other than yourself who were interested, you know, up on the mainland. Like, I mean, when you were down in the valley areas and so on, I mean, you really had an opportunity through the Federation of getting to, thinking there was somebody at the helm, you know, giving somebody you could get in touch with and so on. I was involved from the sense of being there when we were getting started and having the vision for the Cape Breton identity, collectively meeting. Of course, at the village, and many meetings. When you had somebody of Jim St. Clair's caliber and the involvement of a number of the ones from the Beaton Institute, you know, you had people who were in the business, as you would say, professional academics sort of thing, the old Sydney Society and so on. A lot of, I guess when you look back now, I mean, there was just a lot of visionaries going on and seeing like the benefit of having a Cape Breton identity. It's almost a science now. I mean, if you really were serious about getting new people involved, you really need to get someone either hired or someone involved in your organization who has very specific skills. The reality is there are not a lot of people interested in preserving history. And it's hard to instill that. I mean, if people really are there like yon, like who cares or whatever, it's very difficult. I have to give credit to Nova Scotia Museums. We were fortunate that we have been receiving funding for years and years. And so that there's always been that, you know, that support, but all the leadership within the community. I mean, we just managed to struggle along. I think that's one of the strong points, I guess, of and you'll see that in other organizations that you're dealing with. At some level, it doesn't hurt to have pride and not wanting to be a quitter. There's something in some of us, a streak, and I think you'll find that in a lot of the people that you'll be talking to. There's a streak that goes and says, when the going gets tough, or goes and says this strong feeling of, I made a commitment, like I'm not giving up.